Why is Netflix losing subscribers at an alarming rate?
And would a cheaper plan with ads win people back? Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.
Hi there. Welcome back to Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, the tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading tech journalists and commentators to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Alex Kidman, joined as always by Adam Turner. Hey Adam, we're just a couple of weeks away from ABBA taking to the stage in London, but not actually ABBA, they're a little old now. Instead, digital avatars that represent the band in its youth. What other acts do you reckon would benefit from the hologram treatment?
Whoa, that just sounds wrong. Like I'm reluctant to put forward any act that I respect because it kind of seems like the ultimate disrespectful move. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll be classy, but I don't have high hopes.
I have this private theory that the Stones have already done this like 10 years ago. Have you already
That's
noticed?
a good point. I was a long way away when I saw them at the Adelaide Oval, so it is possible that they pulled that on me and I didn't notice.
We're also joined this week by a man who definitely knows where the spare batteries for the TV remote control are.
And may or may not be a hologram.
And may or may not be a hologram. From TV Black Box, it's Steve Molk. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Don't blame me. I voted for coders.
Of course you did. Are there any acts you'd want to check out, their career resurrection hologram style?
Oh, Tupac?
Been done.
I was going to say, hasn't that been done?
The Master Chief? Yeah, it's all things that have been done. Look, honestly, I think that the lizards that they've squeezed into the Rolling Stone skin suits are doing a fine job.
If the Rolling Stones lawyers are listening, we're not entirely serious.
Yeah. Keith's still the original. He's still kicking.
He pickled himself a long time ago.
He's going to outlive the lizards.
Now, Steve's joining us because he's our go-to guy when it comes to the world of streaming. And in streaming, there's nobody bigger than Netflix. And it's been a big week for the streaming giant. And not just because there's a new season of Russian Doll waiting for me to binge watch. Steve, Netflix has been on this amazing growth trajectory, except for this week. What happened this week?
Yeah, the results came out that Netflix said we are going to get 2.7 million new subscribers, and they lost 200,000. Under the couch, I think.
That's not a good look. Is this like, does this regularly happen? Do they lose customers?
No, this is the first time that Netflix have seen a downturn in their projected subscriber numbers. They have revised them, understandably, in times past, and given the last couple of years, everybody has revised figures. The challenge for Netflix is I think that this is the long-held adjustment that has been waiting to happen. Netflix's trajectory since it really went heavily into streaming has only been up and up. They had rapid expansion. They are in every country bar 3 in the world. They're delivering content in various countries in multiple languages and content made explicitly for countries. So I think that at some point there had to be, dare I say, like the housing market, a normalization take place. And this, unfortunately for Netflix, was their first.
But this is not the last of it, is it? Because they think it's going to look worse in the next quarter.
Yeah, I think if we're, and I'm starting to get out of my depth when we talk about financial markets and reports, but bear with me. The challenge for Netflix is that where they were when they started and they built some of their projections and said, we're going to have so many subscribers by X years and those sorts of things, very, very aggressive. I don't think they factored for as much competition as they now face, particularly in the North American market where they stare down every day a whole bunch of content creators who used to be feeding and funneling content or selling it, obviously, into their platform to broadcast around the world that now have gone, you know what, we'll just do our own thing.
But they lost 200,000 in the last quarter, but now they expect to lose 2 million in the next quarter. So they're definitely on a downhill trajectory, yeah?
Like I said, I think in part it's a normalization. I think that there were lots of people that said, we are going to sign up to Netflix and we're happy to do it. And Netflix are out there aggressively telling us that they've got the best library and look at all of our stuff. And there's I think in part to Netflix's detriment, like the Russian Doll release for season 3 this week, Alex. I'm someone that gets a million press releases fly into my inbox every day from TV networks and content creators. The first I heard that was coming was 2 days before it landed on Netflix. Now, how am I supposed to do anything for them or with them to promote their product if they don't tell me about it until literally 2 days before it drops on their service? And in some cases, Netflix aren't telling us until surprise it's on the thing today.
They've done that before, though. It's been a while since I was writing a regular monthly column covering off what they'd release, and they used to send out, and this is a little inside baseball, but they used to send
Sure.
out a full, here's what's coming this month.
Yep.
But I always knew when I was writing that, right, well, that's the stuff they kind of want to promote, but there will be more. There will be
Other
other
stuff.
things that pop up. But speaking of Russian Doll in a kind of tangential way, part of where they're pinning some of their losses, though, is in Russia. You mentioned 3 countries. It's actually now 4
Yes.
because they dropped all their operations in Russia. And they reckoned that was 700,000 potential subs lost, although it wasn't clear if that was 700,000 they were planning to get or if they had 700,000 Russian subscribers.
Oh, and I think Russia actually owes them 700,000 rubles based on how much the value of it's worth these days.
So it's about what, 350?
Yeah. No, well, you're right, and that's a challenge. Russia is no small market to Netflix, and for them to understandably decide that we're not going to broadcast into Russia, at least for the foreseeable future, that's going to hit their bottom line. Now, there is, of course, the ongoing concern from the audience who are like, great that we've got access to Netflix. We love the service. It delivers usually pretty well for us. How do we find the big thing? Because everyone's happy to watch season 3 of Russian Doll because they've watched season 1 or 2, or they've heard their
Hang on,
mates
you
talk
need
about
to tell me what Russian Doll is, because I'm imagining it's a cooking show with a turkey and a duck and a chicken.
Oh, boy, you've got some really interesting watching in front of you. Although I thought it was season 2, Steve, but I could be mistaken.
Is this a drama?
It's a
Yes.
drama
spy
with
drama,
a
sort of
time
a-
traveling and death conceit, and I really don't want to
Ooh,
say too much.
okay.
Because you should watch this.
I liked a lot of the words in that sentence.
I
Yes.
want to say it's about the first season was 4 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
even a little longer.
Okay.
Which is why I think it's the 3rd season. I apologize. It could be the 2nd.
So no sign of a chicken or a turkey or a duck.
Someone is preparing a turkey in one scene, I believe.
I'm in.
But
That's a tick in every
not
box.
actually the main hook of the show. But it's at least season 1. I've not touched season 2 or 3, as the case may be, yet. But season 1 was one of those must-watch programs. You're right, though, Steve. Although one of the things I think Netflix, you mentioned the US market and
Yes.
how this is a big focus. One of the things that I think Netflix has done better than most, especially in recent years, is that international content and bringing forward these stories and even just shows they buy in. Anyone who hasn't watched Old Enough, for example, the absolutely charming little Japanese, very small kids series, should check that out. They got Squid Game out of South Korea, of course. Nearly everyone watched that. Their competitors don't seem to be doing that kind of content. They seem to be doing the let's make American content that we can sell elsewhere instead.
And look, Netflix, as recently as I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, as a part of their global expansion, said that when we buy in content, so not stuff that they're commissioning, stuff that they're buying from someone else, we are only going to buy it from you if we can buy it to put into every library we have around the world. Because this is the changing face that we've discussed before, that it's this regionalized notion that I can watch it here on this service, but I can't watch it here on that same service. I have to watch it on the different one because that's the deal they did, because either they didn't have that service here at the time or they refused to have a service or whatever it is. Netflix is like, screw that. We're big enough. If you want us to have your show, we've got to be able to put it everywhere. And in that regard, you've got content creators that are going, okay, so I'm willing to risk it, or I could make more money, or here's my opportunity. What am I going to do? I'm going in with Netflix. They're giving me that leg up. And then it lands on Netflix. But because you were an untested, say, production company, they're not going to give it the big shove. They're kind of going to let it just sort of slip out and hope that, or certainly as a producer, you're going to hope that someone picks it up and goes, hey, this is actually amazing, because buzz promoting your show on any streamer, especially Netflix, is going to do heaps better than it just appearing in the slider that says it's the 7th most watched show in your region at the moment.
So if they're bleeding viewers at the moment and it looks like it's going to get worse and the competition is just getting stronger,
Yep.
what's Netflix's plan to turn this around?
Let's make more money, Adam. That's the answer.
That's a
And
bold
then-
Well,
business
hang on,
plan.
that's
a fresh
like-
and innovative idea.
But there's steel underwear and profit, but
Mm.
what's the step in the middle?
Oh, what? Question mark.
Yes. How are they
Steel
going to
underwear,
turn
question mark, profit.
how are they going to turn this around?
In this case, it is Netflix leaning into that almost sacred of ideas, password sharing. Now, we
Ooh.
know that when we sign up to a Netflix or any streamer account, we have the ability on our single login to have it on a number of different devices. They're usually capped somewhere, usually it's around the 5, might be a few more, might be a couple less. But 5 devices I can have my thing on. And what we have we the market have taken advantage of since streamer immemorial, has been the fact that Adam might subscribe to, hypothetically, Netflix, Alex might subscribe hypothetically to Prime Video, and Mulk might hypothetically subscribe to Stan. We're not all subscribed to the same thing, but we then share that password so that we're all logging onto each other's other 2 services, but I'm paying for one, and that's how we're spreading the load between us.
It's what I like to call the brother-in-law principle.
Or as Russia likes to call it, thank you, brother.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you, comrade. Thanks for tuning in, US intelligence. The important thing, however, is that for that to, of course, take place, it means that ostensibly the other 2 of us aren't paying for a Netflix subscription. So what Netflix are doing are currently trialing the ability for them to crack down on other people using, in this case, Adam, your password.
Yeah.
So what they're looking at doing is saying, right, we acknowledge that Alex and Mulk are using your Netflix password. They are very clearly not in your house, and they most of the time aren't in your house when they use it. Rather than punish you and saying, that's it, we're cutting you off, those guys can't have it, for a small fee every month, we'll allow you to share your password with other people.
This
So
is
it's a
the
little bit more.
Netflix members thing that they've trialed in bits of South America, isn't it?
Yeah, so the idea being that then here's my Netflix subscription, here's my, I think they're talking about $3 to $5 a month extra, and now you still have the same limited number of devices you can have it on, but they're going to be okay if they aren't in the same house, ostensibly from the same IP source.
But people travel around. That like how can they be sure of that?
Yeah,
Especially as travel picks up again as the pandemic moves into a new phase, we'll say.
Well, that's a really great question, Adam. We know that when we connect to services like that, they don't just record the source IP, they also record the name of the device. So there's elements or the ability for them to be able to say, well, hang on, we can see that in Adam's case, there's some guy called Mulk who accesses it on his iPad
Yeah.
and is never in this from the same source IP as Adam is. That would lead us to believe that maybe Mulk doesn't live with Adam.
So everyone needs to rename their iPads Adam.
I think that's going to be the way we'll get around it. Shh, don't tell anyone. We've broken through. It's obviously a little more complex than that. But what they're doing is trialing the technology for them to be able to determine ostensibly how Alex and I are accessing it, whether we're not a part of your immediate family, because you're exactly right. If I've got a university student who only ever watches it on their phone on the train to and from uni or whatever, and never opens it at home because they've got a big screen television on the wall to do it, how are we going to be able to line that up when, my university student isn't called Adam and the device isn't called Adam's iPhone?
I would have thought though the consistency of watching is what would be the dead giveaway. If I'm in a Tokyo hotel watching once a year because that's when I'm on my holidays, they don't need to sweat that so much. If I'm in Sydney and Adam's in Melbourne and I'm always in Sydney, then they can pick that because your mobile student there is probably going to have a different IP address or range depending on how the ISP configures things.
Sure.
When they move from cell to cell, that's going to give itself away as, right, this is someone actually in motion on a small device. It's the people watching hours and hours and hours at home, not your 1 hour a day on a train folk that I think are going to fuss Netflix, although I'm sure they'd like to make money out of all of them.
Look, the bottom line is what they're attempting to do is to keep track of how they can crack down on this notion that they know is absolutely happening across the market around the world, And the technology that they're doing it is their own, it's proprietary, and they're wanting to try and get on top of it so that the end result is, hey presto, yeah, we lost subscribers, but look, here's the big shiny numbers. The money got better.
Every time you're on this show, you bring up Presto. It's not coming back, Malk. It's not coming back.
Oh, look, it's deeply held.
So it's clearly a big deal because according to Netflix's numbers, they have a little bit over 200 million subscribers around the globe, 210 or something like that. And they estimate that 100 million households are watching Netflix without paying for it. So basically, 1 in every 3 households, if not people watching Netflix, are not paying for it. I can see why that's a big deal and why they want a little bit of that money back.
So if you line up the coin, right, even if they only get, let's say conservatively, a quarter of those 100 million, shares paying the extra cash,
Yeah.
mate, I would walk down the aisle for 125 million bucks extra, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
But I suppose the difference is the amount of money you make, and I suppose how you enforce it. There's not an easy path to this because I mean you could do what Foxtel used to do for its IP streaming. I think they still do it actually, where it's a set number of devices, just period. You just
Finite,
say here's my 5 devices. I think it is off the top of my head, and those are the ones that can watch Foxtel, and that's it.
It is still very much that, and it's very, very frustrating. Let me tell you, when you go, even as simple as I got a new device and I want to bring it in, and then you log in and go, oh crap, I've just quickly got to make sure that of the 4 devices, the other 5 devices that are there, which is the one I'm retiring or which is the one I'm not taking away. Look, the long and the short of it is absolutely the fact that it is reasonable that Netflix would expect its subscribers to be using their subscription only on their devices or within their family unit in that context. Now, that even stretches beyond the fact that you may have adult children or others that don't live with you that you share. Look, that's a whole other box of dice. The one thing that this will not save you from, and I don't know why you would do this, is leaving your Netflix signed into a hotel television or device and then checking out of the hotel and then finding out later that 18 other people have watched your Netflix and buggered up your algorithm. That's got to be worse than any amount of money.
So I've done not the leaving the hotel room, but I've been in hotel rooms where
And
people
found
have
someone
left,
else's.
and someone else's Netflix has been there and been active. And look,
And there it
sorry,
goes.
random person who left it on in a Tokyo hotel room, but I watched a lot of stuff that seemingly, according to your algorithm, you never would have. I hope I expanded your horizons.
Yeah, I've made a point of doing that and watching the dirtiest stuff I could find on Netflix.
So the other solution, beyond password sharing, beyond trying to generate revenue from those users that Netflix has touted it might lean into, is the somewhat controversial idea that it might charge less for its services. That feels like a consumer win, but by integrating ads into its services.
Oh.
Steve, is this a good idea?
It's not a new idea, unfortunately. I mean, Hulu already do it in the States. They offer a cheaper/free ad-supported version that you can get involved with. And Disney are now toying with the same idea, offering a cheaper subscription price to include ads. For Netflix to do it, I think in itself is a reasonable enough concern. The interesting thing is for Netflix to be considering an ad-supported, cheaper subscription platform is, as we've been talking about, the sheer size of who they are, the number of subscribers that they have, and the offering that that could mean for their bottom line. The fact that they might go, well, okay, we'll go for let's say it's a $2 or a $3 version when it comes to the subscription, but you're going to get pre-roll and mid-roll ads during the show or where the ad breaks might be. I think that there'll be some people that go, that's a great idea. I'm willing to do that because the cost of everything is so much that I can afford a cheaper thing and I'll put up with ads. However, we know there are literally generations of people that are all younger than us that try and avoid ads at all costs. So
They'll be
they are
reaching for
not
that
the ones.
skip ads button that may not be there.
That's right. Or they'll be looking for what part of my organs do I need to sell to pay for my Netflix subscription so I don't have ads delivered to me?
Or can I hack my Netflix so that I don't get ads fed to me?
Yeah. Do you think they just go with pre-roll ads or do you think they'd actually try and insert them in the middle?
I think that Netflix are going to do everything they can when it comes to getting those ads in there, because it is to their best benefit to make sure those ads get seen and are unskippable by the end user. So they're going to want to wedge them in all of the right places. The only thing I think we can almost guarantee is that there won't be end show ads.
But there are no right places because they don't like they used to make TV shows with ad breaks in mind. There'd be a couple of minutes of action and then something would
Yep.
happen, it would fade to black. They don't Netflix originals aren't written that way. Are they gonna have to shoehorn them in like when you're watching a crappy, catch up service that's just cut someone off mid word to say about now I like some, pot noodle.
I think particularly Netflix originals are going to be the toughest ones as
Yeah.
to where do they put the ads. That said, there is still ebbs and flows and beats within productions that are the right places to put ads. The critical thing that's going to be is whether or not they end up in those right places, or they just get shoehorned mid soliloquy or mid, conversation that you then go, well, hang on, they were just doing something and now here's an ad for a bed
Yeah.
manufacturer, and now I'm back to the show.
Ads, though, are tricky. You're right about Netflix's scale, but that creates an interesting problem, I would have thought, for them, because they can say, we've got these 200 million subscribers or whatever it is. Let's sell some ads globally. That's great if you say Coke or
Yep.
maybe McDonald's or a big global brand. But of course,
Yes.
some of them have different offerings in different places. There's different cultural sensitivities.
Yes.
Doesn't this mean that Netflix might have to set up, ad selling or buying agencies in individual countries such that, here in Australia, we might get ads for Ugg boots and Akubras, and in the UK, it'd be for Spotted Dick and Jellied Eels?
Yes. And look, congratulations to the poor people having to sell spotted dick and jellied eels. I think the difficulty will be that I don't think Netflix are going to roll this out to all of the countries in the
No,
world,
they won't.
because there's just not the benefit to them. I think I agree. It'll be big global brands they'll be wanting to attract in the first instance, and then they'll be looking at a tier 2 scenario where is it worth our while to engage with big company in America like a Wendy's or something, which is a uniquely American brand, and we'll just plug it into that for the American market.
But we saw that with streaming music. It took a long time for the free ad supported options to come to Australia.
Yes.
And even with the video, as you say, there's a few options in the US. I think HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Disney's looking at doing it this year.
Yep.
Even though some of those services are available here, we're often seen as too small to bother with that kind of stuff, aren't we?
Well, it's a real challenge. When you have a look at the size of our market, if everybody signed up, it's 26 something million, 26 million and change Australian people. There's not that many that watch commercial free-to-air television or free-to-air television on any night. Let's top it out at maybe 5 million, and subscriptions only go down from there. So if and Netflix would be the granddaddy for sure. They've got the most subscriptions in the nation. Is it worth them putting in the infrastructure and getting together with the ad sales or partnering with an ad sales organization to wedge in a promo for, heaven forbid, maybe even The Block or something like that, getting a promo on Netflix? Where do they draw the line? Will they take anybody's money, or will they take ads for shows on free-to-air television?
Well, there's also the prospect there, and this happens with some streamers. The WWE Network does this. They sell ads within their paid subscription product, but they're just for US companies. So while I was watching WrestleMania, I was getting ads for Cricket Wireless, a US cellular carrier that I can't subscribe to. Not terribly useful, but they clearly didn't give us stuff outside the States. Netflix could always do that.
Are there pandas in the W? Oh no, that's WWF. Sorry. No, well, you're
Yeah,
I
right.
can just see one
Alex.
That's a
panda
very old
hitting
joke,
another
sir.
panda with a chair.
That's the challenge, is that we may get an ad-supported, American-only ad-supported platform. And
Which would suck.
look, it would be horrendous for
Hi,
us,
Jake from
but
State Farm.
that's right. But if you're this is the trade-off, right? If you're willing to put up with ads for State Farm and all of the rest of it, but only pay $2 to $3 to $5 a month for your Netflix sub, is it a problem? Tight ass?
Do you think that it's a slippery slope and we could get to the point where they would start putting ads into all the tiers? Because I would have said absolutely not. And then someone said, what about Foxtel? Because Foxtel originally had no ads in it.
I think it would be cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Hmm.
I don't think that we're there by any extreme yet. It may
Oh,
you can't really predict what's going to happen. I don't think that that's where it's going to land.
I think it'd be suicide. I think they'd be absolutely crazy to do that. Yeah.
So the other aspect, of course, that Netflix can lean into for ads is it knows what I've watched.
Yes.
But
Knows
does
what
this
you
mean that
watched
if I've
last summer.
does this mean if I've watched a whole lot of Squid Game, it's going to suggest, right, well, you obviously want to buy lots of machine guns and body bags. And we'll
And-
sell you ads. Yeah, we'll show you ads. The whole programmatic ads thing that Google does that's made billions out of.
And let's not forget, with a library the size of Netflix's, that they will absolutely tack in a promo for this other show they think you're going to want to watch because you've watched Squid Game and you've watched this and you've watched this and you watched that.
Well, Amazon already does
Well,
that.
I don't
Amazon has
mind that.
pre-rolls.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind that, and Amazon's a good example here because they've got pre-roll, but it's all skippable as well.
Yes,
It's all
100%.
just, hey, here's the thing. I could live with that. Frankly, I would put up with cheaper Netflix if it was just we also have this show you might like because I can skip it, I can ignore it. I might even find something I might like.
Yeah. Well,
That's quite different from being sold cigarettes, cars, or toilet paper.
Discovery is the new buzzword when we talk about streaming now. How do we discover the new content? Because traditional forms of advertising, even dare I say it, plugging your PR, your releases through to jerks like me who publish it on our website, tvblackbox.com.au, it helps a bit, but we're not going to make your show buzzy or globally, the pickup. It's got to be found and discovered, and then people will fall in love with it. And they also, Netflix know that they're targeting shows to slices of the market. For every Stranger Things, they've also got a Cobra Kai. For every Squid Game, there's a Lost in Space. So not everybody going to tune into everything, but they know that people are going to get into some of those things. And the way their magical Venn diagrams overlap are incredible.
But they're also doing weird stuff. Like they're making a show of the Exploding Kittens card game.
Yep.
But they're also producing an Exploding Kittens mobile app because Netflix now does games. Do they do that in Australia or is that just in the US?
Gaming is making its way here. And I don't think it's fully fledged in Australia yet.
Should they, to quote Telstra, stick
They
to
do
their
have
own
their
knitting?
terrible trivia quiz game thing.
But
yeah, but it's more than that. It's going to be so bad.
Would they be better off sticking to their core competency here? It seems to me like that's just a waste of time and money on something that's not going to help them. Or am I looking at it the wrong way?
I think that the challenge is if you were and you have to be American, but a Netflix shareholder, you would be looking for them to deliver higher returns year on year on year. And they have to try things and they have to do things and they have to make sure that every year they deliver you a better return than they did last year. So that means they're going to do some wacky stuff. They're going to come up with the Exploding Kittens TV show. They're going to try and make us game through our browser with a TV remote that isn't built for it.
Oh, please, no. I thought we were past all that.
Well, okay, so they have a terrible trivia quiz thing, which does exactly what Steve's talking about.
Yep.
Which I've tried twice and I regretted both times. But maybe this is the way forward for Netflix. Let's not forget they started life by posting people DVDs, which seems quaint now. So they've already flexed their business one way. Maybe they flex it another to survive the onslaughts of your Disneys and your Paramounts. And in 10 years' time, we're all going, well, remember when we used to buy video games and now they're all just on Netflix?
You mean Xbox Game Pass?
That's the one. That's the one. But that's the thing. Netflix, I think, the expansion of Netflix, Adam, doesn't hurt you by them doing games. It's just another thing. Now, if they suddenly said, we are only doing the games, then sure. But then I think, yes, they would lose a lot of subscribers. Having those extra bits of content, and especially the extra bits of content that they own, that's a very Netflix play in it. It could pay out to a bit of the market that's just doesn't happen to be Adam.
Because there's not enough places to get games from these days.
Yeah.
That's the big problem.
And I think what's going to happen is that some of those things will vanish with a whimper. They'll have a go. They'll have a bit of a shout about it at the time. This will be one of them. And there it's gone.
Yeah.
Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Steve for joining us.
It has been my pleasure.
And you're an old hand on the show. You know what you're about to face, the Vertical Hold patented 3 questions of doom. I'll ask all 3. You can answer them in any order you like. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And the current big contentious question, In the movie of your life, which Hollywood star gets to play you?
I'm Steve Molk on every bit of social media that matters. I write for and talk about stuff for tvblackbox.com.au and podcast with them and do a whole bunch of stuff around that. And as much as I would love to say that it would be Bill Murray portraying me in my life, it's more likely John Candy.
Fair call. Fair call. I would have also accepted the bloke from Kenny.
Shay Jacobson. Mate, that's a Hollywood beat up. That's me looking way better than I'm allowed to.
And as always, if you want to catch us, probably not looking way better than we ought to, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, at verticalhold.com.au, or via the Vertical Hold Facebook page.
And as always, thanks everyone for tearing yourself away from Netflix for a few minutes and joining us. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. Give them a free subscription. Leave us a review on your podcasting platform of choice and help us spread the good word in 2022. Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support. That'd be it.
I, for one, blame Adam's Haunted Mac. It's somehow involved in this.
It's Revenge of the Haunted Mac.
That's fair.